Дорогі учасники вебінару, дорогі колеги, я пропоную починати. Хотів би перш за все представитися. Мене звати Сергій Зайцев, я працюю у Київському офісі Інституту міжнародної освіти та програми імені Фулбрайта. Від імені нашого офісу хочу щиро привітати всіх вас на нашій сьогоднішній події. Дуже вам дякую за те, що ви знайшли можливість і час долучитися до неї. Також хотів би вам подякувати за вашу зацікавленість програмою, власне, магістерською програмою, так, для студентів. Цінуємо ваш інтерес до неї. I will switch to English now because even though our today's speaker understands Ukrainian very well, but the working language of this event is actually English. And so I would like to say that, by way of a brief introduction, I would like to say that this is the first webinar in a two-part series of events that we're going to have tonight and next Monday. And over the course of these two events, we will be focusing on the ways and techniques of drafting effective statements. Two statements, as you know, they are part of the program application package. One is the study or research objective essay, and the other one is a personal statement essay that all applicants are required to submit to our program as part of their application packages. And last but not least is the writing sample, which is also very important. So Glenn will also talk about selecting an appropriate and an effective writing sample that you need to submit as part of your application. We're very lucky to have Glenn with us today, and thank you very much, Glenn, again for agreeing to speak today to our audience. We sincerely hope that these two trainings, that these two webinars will be helpful to our audience, to our participants, as they put together their application packages, draft their statements, and select the most effective writing sample to submit to our program. Glenn is currently a visiting professor of English at Lviv Polytechnic National University. He has been there for almost 3 years, I understand. And prior to that, he worked as a Peace Corps volunteer here in Ukraine for a total of 4 years. And Glenn has rich experience in teaching and tutoring university instructors and students in the English language. He has done that extensively and also in many locations throughout Ukraine. So today he's going to share this wealth of knowledge and experience with all of you. And as I already mentioned, we truly hope that you will find the tips and techniques that Glenn is going to share with you useful as you work on your application packages. And of course, we very much look forward to receiving your applications to the program, and we hope that all of them will be as strong and powerful and clear and effective as possible. So without any further delay, I would like to turn the floor over to Glenn. Glenn is going to present for some time, for about 40, 45, 50 minutes. Please save your questions until Glenn has actually made his presentation. We have allotted ample time for questions and answers, so we will have that at the very end of our session today. But now Glenn is going to basically talk about the theme of our today's webinar. The floor is yours, Glenn.
Thank you, Sergey, and thank you all for joining us this evening. This will be helpful to you. First thing I want to just mention, I am here in Lviv, and I'm assuming that's all of somewhere in Ukraine. So, as unfortunately we have to always begin. If there is an air raid alert, you should follow whatever procedures that you follow. I will continue on seminar, but of course you have to for safety. So if there is some do whatever it is that you normally do. It makes you feel safe. Let me just tell you briefly a little bit about myself. In the United States, I have been a history teacher nearly 30 years. As Sergey said, I came in 2016 as a Peace Corps volunteer, and now am a visiting professor at Lviv Polytechnic. I've worked with many students and many university professors. I've traveled around Ukraine, conducted workshops specifically for teachers and professors. I believe I've been to 13 OBLASTs. Someday I hope to visit all 24 OBLASTs and Crimea as well, Ukrainian Crimea. I have also been the recipient of grants in the past, and right, to study in Japan. Once I realized that there were organizations out there that would pay for me to travel to other countries to study, I completely took advantage of this opportunity. So I also was able to study in Germany under a Goethe grant, and a summer in Oxford grant, local station in Florida. And I've also helped a lot of American students and Ukrainian students with grant applications, with motivation letters, with personal statements. So I want to share with some of the things that I've learned personally, and it's useful to you. Also, let me say, if my English is at all unclear, if I'm speaking too quickly, please send me a note in the comment section that I need to slow down or speak louder or speak. I want to make sure that everyone understands me. So let me start here with what this seminar is about. Of course, you are all applicants, or at least thinking about being applicants of the Fulbright program. And today we're going to talk about the study plan, your goals section, and then also your writing sample. I think it's a good idea to start off with what Fulbright's goals are, because when you're writing your grant proposal, filling out your application, you want to keep in mind what it is that they're looking for. The Fulbright organization was started by an American senator back, I think, in the 1940s, with the idea to bring people of the world, Americans and people of the world, together through education. The goal for Fulbright in Ukraine is to increase the mutual understanding between people of the United States and Ukraine through scholarly and research exchanges. What is your goal? Well, I'm assuming that your goal is to study in an American university. But keep in mind that from the point of view of Fulbright, this is a two-way street. They want you to come to America to study in an American university, but they want you to take those skills and that knowledge back to Ukraine to help rebuild the country. And right now, I think there is a lot of goodwill and strong feelings towards Ukraine right now in the United States, in spite of what you might be seeing in the Congress with a small group. Americans still strongly support Ukraine and want to see Ukraine successful and rebuilt as a modern country. Your achievements studying in America will help make that happen. What we will do today, because I was a teacher for nearly 30 years, I begin my lessons always with objective to do. It is my hope that when we're done, you will be able to write a strong effective study research objective and future goal that is a clear, detailed description of the program that you wish to pursue. And also that you will be able to prepare and submit a professional academic writing sample that relates your Fulbright proposal to Fulbright's goals and to demonstrate your analytical and writing abilities. I think it's important that we pay attention to what it is that Fulbright is saying that they want and what they're looking for. It's been my experience in writing grants that very often the organization that is giving the grants, and Fulbright's no different, is going to try and make it as clear and as easy as possible for you to come up with a good. So they will tell you what it is they're looking for. And one of the things that they're looking for, which I'm sure everyone here meets this qualification, is that you are ready to go on to graduate level work, that you have demonstrated success and quality with your undergraduate preparation, and you're ready to go on to do graduate work in the United States. They're looking to see, do you have knowledge of this your discipline and an understanding of the context? And by the way, I will share this PowerPoint with you when I'm done. So, I mean, feel free to take notes if you wish, but I will share everything with you. They are also looking to see, do you have experience with research skills, and especially an ability to write clearly? This last one is a difficult one because you're going to be writing in a language that is not your native language. And are you motivated to study in the US? It's not always easy going to another country, another culture, another language. It takes a lot of discipline on your part. Are you motivated to do that? And have you realistically articulated your career plans, achievable plans? And then finally, they're going to be looking for evidence of your language proficiency. I have some general advice about writing. The first thing is I want to actually go to George Orwell, which maybe some of you are familiar with, the 1984 guy who wrote that book. I think he has some general advice about writing that is in alignment with my philosophy and ideas about writing. Never use a long word when a short one will do. I can't emphasize these things enough because there's a certain kind of academic writing. I've helped many Ukrainian academics and teachers with scientific papers, translating them into English and this sort of thing. And I noticed that not only in Ukraine, so in the United States, there is a tendency for academics to try to use long words, big, complicated words to show how incredibly smart they are. And that's great. I think it's terrific to have a great vocabulary, but it's important to remember the ultimate purpose of writing. It's to communicate. It's to take an idea from my head and put it into someone else's head. And in order to do that, your writing has to be clear. It has to be concise. So Orwell said, if it's possible to cut out a word, then cut that word out. If you don't need it to be understood, shorten it up. Do not use the passive voice when you can use the active voice. This is something that I think is, I'm sure you're familiar, you know, I found that Ukrainians have a better grasp of English grammar often than most Americans. But the active voice tells us what a person or a thing does. It's the subject, verb, object. I am making Vareniki. That's the active voice. The passive voice tells us what is done to someone. Object, verb, subject. Vareniki is being made. It's always better to use the active voice. I would also say stay away from jargon. Jargon is the professional language of your particular discipline. Educators in particular, I have found, love educational jargon. Words that are really only understood within a small group of people. So try to avoid scientific words, jargon, or foreign phrases if you can use an everyday word or sentence to explain something. Finally, Orwell said, careful and thorough writer, in every sentence she writes, will ask herself 4 questions. What am I trying to say? What words will express it? What image or idiom will make it clear? And is this image fresh enough to have an effect? And what he means by this last one is to avoid cliches. Cliches are phrases that have been used so many times that people don't hear them anymore. To refer to someone as a diamond in the rough, you know, to talk about a person who has potential. Yes, we've heard that many times. Is there another way that you can say this where people hear it differently? I'm the first draft of a long lost Shakespeare play. That's saying pretty highly. I'm thinking pretty highly of myself, but try to find a creative and fresh way to say what it is that you're saying. Now, what does Orwell mean by this? Let me give you an example. Here is a phrase as maybe an academic, right? Should you find yourself unable to articulate a phrase that is amiable, forego expressing an appraisal to any extent whatsoever. Does anybody know what that means? Let's try it in simpler words. If you can't say something nice, then don't say anything at all. This is maybe advice that your mom gave you. My mother certainly did. The first way sounds like you know a lot of big words, but the second way is something that people will understand and will remember long after they've read what it is that you've been writing. So as much as possible, try to be clear. Now, I think all that's good advice from George Orwell. I also have some general advice. And my advice is to remember that in this application, you are selling yourself. So don't undersell yourself. It has been my experience that general Ukrainians tend to be very modest and shy in talking about themselves. This is not the time to be that way. I had a student, I was working with some IT students on their CVs, and I asked one student about, I forget, a particular language, Python or something, you know, did he know this? Did he learn this language? And he said, I wasn't the worst one in the class. And I said, imagine if that's how Coca-Cola advertised their soda. Drink Coca-Cola. It's not the worst one that you could drink. No, when you are trying to get someone to accept you into a program, you are very much selling yourself. You are saying, pick me for every other application that you have. So do not undersell yourself. We have a phrase in English, to toot your own horn. To toot your own horn is to blow your own trumpet. It means to talk about who you are in the best possible terms. Keep in mind, this is a competition. And so it's been my experience that Ukrainians are very competitive, whether it's children in school, students in a university, or adults. If you create a game, if you create a competition, Ukrainians want to win. Well, this is a competition and you want to win. So make sure that when you are writing your application and writing your personal statement, that you put yourself in the best possible light. So let's start with the study plan part. this part is deceptive. And by deceptive, I mean on the application, it doesn't look like it's very much. There's one part that says, briefly describe the area of the field in which you plan to specialize in the United States. And I've looked through some previous applications, and sometimes people just write a sentence or two. They're thinking that this is just the part of the form where I fill out what it is that I'm studying. And then it says, describe your future plans. Again, if we go back to the application itself, it says, this statement is an essential and highly important part of the application. Essential and highly important. That means that you need to take this very seriously. This is the part of the application that they're telling you, what is it that you're going to study? What is it that you want to do here? And so make sure that you give this some real thought and pay attention to what it is that you are writing for this part. Write a clear and detailed description of the program you want to pursue. Clearly identify the areas within your field in which you want to specialize, concentrate. Notice that they use the word clear 2 different times, clear and clear. What that means is that you are writing something so that it is easy to understand. And they want a detailed description of what your plans are, of what your program is. So you should say in there what it is that you're going to accomplish in this program. You should let them know why you want to specialize or concentrate in this particular field. Now, I know for some people, in talking to literally thousands of Ukrainian students, some people are in the program they're in because their parents told them to, or school told them to. It's like they didn't have a lot of choice in this. But this is where you have to let them know your passion, that you are focusing on this area of study because you have a belief in your heart that it's an important thing to do. And you should say in there what aspects of the field interest you most. If you're excited about what it is that you do, then I'll be excited about it when I'm reading it. Or the person who's going to choose the applicant to go to the United States will be excited. I always, in the United States, universities operate a little bit differently in Ukraine in that American students sit down with a catalog, excuse me, at the beginning of the semester, and they pick what classes that they want to take. Now, obviously, you take classes that are in your field discipline. But honestly, the first 2 years that I went to university, I would sit down with a catalog and I would ask different people, who's a good professor? And I almost didn't care what it was that they were teaching. If they were passionate about what they taught, that's the class that I wanted to take. That I want someone who's going to excite me about what it is that they have to say. And that's what you do with your application, is to have these people, because it's going to be 3 people per area, get excited about what you're saying. And then you want to explain, how does this fit in with your previous training and with your future objectives? You're kind of in the middle of your career here. You've done this undergraduate and you have future plans. Traveling to the United States and studying in an American university is how this is going to culminate your graduate or your undergraduate work, and how it's going to be a spring for your future plans. Let's see. So let me give you just some suggestions here on the writing. State your objective in specific, quantifiable terms. What I mean by this is say exactly what it is that you want to do. And if it's measurable, that's even better. When I say avoid vagueness and broad generalizations, I guess I can only think of like Miss Universe beauty pageant. You know, it's sort of the cliche where they ask, you know, what is it the participant wants? And it's like, oh, I just want peace, love, and understanding. Well, that's nice, but it's kind of vague. Everybody wants peace, love, and understanding. You know, how are you going to measure whether we have peace, love, and understanding? You want to be specific what you're going to do. And if there's some way that you can say something quantifiable about your program plan, then put that in there as well. I'm just kind of continuing on with this same theme. Bring your work to life. Don't let it sit on the page as just some dead words. Let the reader feel the passion of your mission and your vision. And I hope your area of study, that you do have a vision, that you have some larger plan for how you're to make Ukraine a better place after the victory. You know, I've talked to many Ukrainians of all ages that right now, of course, this is a horrible time, maybe one of the worst times in Ukraine's history. But after this victory, there's going to be so many opportunities to turn this country into the most modern 21st century country and I use the example of if you were in Berlin or Tokyo in 1946, you probably would have thought, this is hopeless. Look at these cities, they're destroyed. How can we ever come out of this? And yet, Germany and Japan rebuilt countries, modernized their countries in such a way that, in terms of the automobile industry, by the 1970s, they were competing on a world stage. German and Japanese cars became known as some of the best. Why? Because they had totally rebuilt their factories, whereas the United States was still building cars in factories made in the 30s and 40s. That's going to happen to Ukraine. Ukraine is going to rebuild a modern 21st century country with all of the new ideas that come with that. And hopefully, some of those new ideas are yours. So make the person become as passionate as you are about those ideas that you have. If at all possible, state your objective in terms of outcomes, not process. Process means I will do A, B, C, D. Okay, that's fine. But much better to say, what is going to be the result of your study? What is going to be the result of the knowledge and the skills that you acquire? Let them see the vision of what is to come, not, you know, I will be studying in the library every day. I'm sure you would never say something. But, and then also talk about how you're to expand upon what you've already done, because you've already have accomplishments. So you are building on that and let them know that you're. And then finally, do you have realistic, achievable goals? And I think, you know, probably most of you do, but make sure that you state those clearly for them to see. Then the final part for this first bit of advice is, why do you need to go to the US? Why can't you do this in Ukraine? And so you need to justify why you need to study at an American university. My second general bit of advice here is you should clearly state how you will use the Fulbright experience for your future plans. Because Fulbright is ultimately a program created by and for optimists, idealists. It's idealism that people can make the world a better place through education. And so you need to share your idealism with them. Now, this is idealism married to practicality. These people are giving out very expensive positions to study in the United States, so they want to see their idealism succeed, which means that they need practical, are willing to do the work to make their dreams come true. Specify what will be the results of your experience. Don't just say that you're going to go to America and you're going to study, you know, new medical techniques and how it can be improved with artificial intelligence programs. What is going to be the result of this? How is this going to be used? If at all possible, identify who's going to benefit from your study. Because ultimately, your study is not about you. Your study is about how you can help others. And so who will you be helping? Is there a specific group of people in Ukraine that you're targeting for help? Is it children? Is it returning soldiers? Is it disabled? Is it pensioners? Is it people in the country or, government officials? I don't know, but it's going to be the one that you are serving for expertise. How are you going to bring that knowledge back to help Ukraine? And if possible, do you have some way to measure your success? How are they going to know that they invested in you has had a return? And what can you tell them about how you will know that you were successful? And then finally, relate your goals to the goal of Fulbright, because they have a goal. And I don't know if you remember it from back at the beginning, but they're about increasing the mutual understanding between people of the United States and Ukraine through scholarly and research exchanges. That is idealism, but it's practical idealism. It's the idea that people can understand each other better by study, by scholarly research, by exchanges of students and professors. And then finally, my third bit of advice for you, be persuasive. You need to present your objective and your future plans in the most appealing way possible. Often when I'm conducting workshops for teachers, I talk about education's evil twin. Education's evil twin sister is advertising. We both do the same thing. We want people to accept an idea that we have and have some sort of outcome from it. But advertisers are so much better at it than educators are because they have a motivation of money. But look at the techniques that they use. They have to make their product appealing. So you need to make your product appealing. How is your application different than others? What makes it unique? You have to get these three experts in your field of study to be excited about what it is that you're excited about. If you're not persuasive, you're not going to get what you want. And so make sure that you give them something that they're going to be excited about. Keep in mind, you're asking them to invest time, money, and educational resources in you. And so there's a limited number of positions here. And if your idea isn't thought out, if you're not passionate about it, they're going to choose someone else. And so make sure that you're excited about what it is that you're doing, and that excitement comes through in your objective and in your future plans. The writing sample. I'm assuming that most of you probably have already selected or are thinking about selecting a writing sample. Just some of the things, again, that Fulbright is telling us. Your writing sample should be analytical. Analytichny, is this right? Yes. It should be something that shows your ability at critical thinking. In the world that we live in now, it's no longer enough to just know a bunch of facts. There's too many facts to know. What is most important in education and in study now is the ability to think critically and solve problems. So hopefully you've chosen a writing sample that can show that analytical ability, that critical thinking skill. Your writing sample should also demonstrate your writing ability. I think this is kind of a difficult one because I think it's been my experience, at least with Americans, that writing is becoming a lost art. People just don't write chain, at least not more than 280 characters on Twitter, X, or whatever they're calling it. But in the world of Fulbright and graduate education, Writing is still a thing that is valued, so you're demonstrating this. Make sure whatever you select, and it can be something published or unpublished, relates to your actual Fulbright proposal, and that it's academic, that it's professional. It's got to be in English, 10 to 20 pages long in English or a translation of English, and it must be something which you are the sole author. Some general suggestions that I have for you on your writing sample. Once again, is it clear and concise? This is not the time to try to fool people into thinking that you're saying something when you're not saying anything by using a lot of big words. Stay away from abstractions and generalizations. One of the things that I do sometimes is when I'm working with someone on a paper that I think is a little bit too vague and too abstract, I say, explain this paper to a 10-year-old. Make it so that a 10-year-old can understand this. And it should be that clear in your mind. Did you have a clearly stated thesis, and can you prove it? Can I take a marker and highlight your thesis, find it very clearly there? And by the time I'm done reading your paper, can I say that, yes, this person has clearly proven their thesis? Have you developed your paper completely? And is your writing sample up to date? Keep in mind that people reading this are going to be experts in your field, so you shouldn't be submitting something that has been clearly out of date now in terms of what they're going to be familiar with. Also, I would recommend that you have something that's actually relevant to the world today. It's relatable. People can understand that it's not so abstract and esoteric that people are going to think, well, you spent a lot of time doing this research, but what's the point of it? And does it, this goes without saying, but does it demonstrate your academic maturity, professional and academic maturity? One last thing that we need to talk about, and that is ChatGPT or other generative artificial intelligence programs. I'm assuming that most of you have used some AI program or ChatGPT. If you haven't, I would recommend it. And I will tell you this as someone who is not a huge fan of, for instance, this thing. I never had a mobile phone until I came to Ukraine, and the Peace Corps made me get one. And I got the dumbest dumb phone that you could buy. It didn't do anything. And about 3 years ago, I finally realized I have to get a smartphone. Can't exist without it. So I'm not generally in favor of social media, these things, but ChatGPT can be an effective tool if it's used correctly. Of course, you will not go to ChatGPT and say, write a personal statement for me or write about my future plans. This would be unethical, okay? But there is no reason why you cannot use ChatGPT to get advice as an editor. My Ukrainian language teacher, Deanna, she's from Nova Kahovka, but she and her family escaped after 6 months of occupation, and she's now in. She teaches children, Ukrainian children, English. And I told her, you need to take a look at ChatGPT and try it out. And I gave her some advice and some examples. And she told me last week that she took an essay she wrote, and she asked ChatGPT, can I have you give me advice on some essay? And if you've used it, you know that it very quickly can become almost something that feels personal. Did the screen stop sharing for you?
It is sharing.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
it stopped sharing. It stopped.
Okay.
We don't see
Okay,
it
let me.
anymore.
Okay, yeah, I just I'm in a cafe, and so she said, yeah, it said, yes, of course, you can submit an essay. And she submitted the essay, and she said, Glenn, it gave me such good specific feedback. about punctuations, about idioms, about different things. And I believe, and Sergey can give you other advice on this, depending on what Fulbright says, but I think that that is an ethical use of it, because you are still the writer and you are just the editor. To me, that's no different than handing your writing assignment to a friend and saying, can you give me some feedback on it? So if you are somebody who has used this, you can use this, I think, in an ethical way to get feedback on, you can ask it to do many things. Am I using the active voice, or can you correct punctuation or spelling or this kind? So we can talk about that. And that's it for me in terms of just some of the things that I've learned in filling out these kinds of grants and helping people with them. Thank you for inviting me to participate in this. Shasti Vam, I wish you great success. Thank you very much. Oraticia Poborite, Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава.
Героям слава.
Героям слава.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Yes, but we're not saying goodbye because we will see each other next Monday, hopefully,
Yep.
all of us. But now let me, on behalf of all the participants, thank Glenn for his insightful presentation and sharing all of his knowledge and expertise in this important issue of writing effective statements and selecting the writing sample. And so for the time being, we are just saying, see you next Monday. Stay safe. Have a nice evening and a quiet evening. And we are looking forward to seeing all of you next Monday. Thank you very much for your participation and for your attention and your interest in the Fulbright Graduate Student Program.